Today we'll be talking about a journey through a particular series of video games. You've seen the title, you've seen the thumbnail, it's time to die. Dark Souls. Praise the sun, the entire thing. Dark Souls is a game that I did not like at first. And that's where our journey begins. Dark Souls, the 18th of October 2011. It's not when it released, that's when I got my introduction to it. I can't remember if I heard about it first or I just happened to be at Kroger getting groceries and there was a red box and I could get video games, and that was a thing I was doing was, well, $1 or $2, I could afford that. It's very poor, working a minimum wage job. And I'm pretty sure I picked up Dark Souls. I know I have a friend who was really into Dark Souls. We'll get more into that later. But I do very specifically remember the date because thanks to Xbox and especially TrueAchievements.com, it records certain things like when you first get an achievement, when you first play a game. So for the Xbox 360, I played the first Dark Souls game for less than 2 hours. And then I went, nope. And I took it back to the red box, and I instead got Red Faction Armageddon, which is also a fantastic game, completely different, but much more my style. The introduction to this game, knowing nothing about it, just absolutely, here is your butt on a silver platter, and they hand it back to you. It's a really difficult game, and that was all I did. That could be end of video. No, obviously not. 2 years later, in May of 2013, I start playing it again. I don't have too many physical copies of the original Dark Souls. I picked this up because by this point, the time this comes out, I do like Dark Souls. At that point, I did not like it, but I give it another chance with a buddy of mine. He's really into Dark Souls, really likes it, starts taking me through it, and honestly, that's mixed results. In 2013, we're playing it on Games for Windows Live, and the things I remember about this is that we had to buy the game on Windows Live, which was not Steam, but then it had a lot of connection issues, and in order to play together, we technically had to mod the game, download a mod that someone else had already done in order to get us to sync up, and that way we could play together. And there was a risk, because it is against their terms of service, there was a risk that I could have lost my entire Xbox gamer tag and everything. Thankfully, that did not happen. And the bummer is that now, looking back, we'll get into it a little bit later on, but that game is entirely gone, and there's no way to touch it anymore. Games for Windows Live is just dead. But anyway, we start playing it. And it's both fun and not fun. He's played the game for literally hundreds, almost thousands of hours at this point, if I remember correctly, just playing it over and over and going through the entire thing. I touched it for 2 hours and never tried it again. Then we get into a multiplayer, we play together, and I'm still kind of getting my butt kicked the entire time and going through this, but he's good enough that he can easily solo everything, and so he's kind of beating some bosses for me and showing me, trying to get me into it and show me why it's good. And I'm halfway getting it, and then I do remember the part that I went, nope, I'm done. I don't want to do it anymore. And it's going down into the sewers, and it was a part where he's letting me go through it, and I fall down and I fall to my death, and I lose a bunch of stuff because you fall through the floor. There are certain tricks of the Dark Souls games, the series, where if you're not fully paying attention, they do punish you for it. And I was not a fan of that. That's not my kind of game. But I didn't touch it again. I played it with him. It was a fun time. Didn't touch it again. Then Dark Souls 2 comes out. I do actually have a physical copy of Dark Souls 2, although we're not quite there yet, but here's something different to look at. Dark Souls 2 comes out in March of 2014, and this friend is playing it so much and talking about it and showing me all these things. He came over and installed it and showing me videos. That's what it was. We're recording other videos and doing a whole thing, and he's like, you gotta play this game. Check this out. And I see it and I do all this stuff, and there was one particular thing that he showed me that I latched onto it and went, I want to play this game. Even with all the trouble I had with the first one, I wanted to play 2. And it was a mechanic where you could power stance your weapons. Is that what they called it? I think so. You could dual wield. You just had to have certain stats up above a certain amount. But then you could dual wield any weapon, as long as they matched up the weapon types. I'm all in. For whatever reason, I really like swords in video games, and I really like being able to dual wield. And so that was something where I went, yes. Now, at that point, I am playing it on PC. Specifically, I got it and installed my PC while I was in between apartments and living in my significant other's parents' house up in the bedroom. I installed it so I could play that, but then I put about 60 hours into that. I really like Dark Souls 2. It's different. I can use weapons like I like, dual wielding the entire thing. It's good, and I'm playing it, and I'm liking it. And yes, I'm getting my butt kicked at every opportunity, but I don't say no. There's something about it. And I can't fully, entirely, if you've played the game and you like it, you know what it is. If you played the game and you've hated it, I can't blame you. It's an unforgiving game, but it is very rhythmic and pattern driven. Most of the enemies only have a couple of types of attacks, and if you learn what they are, then you can learn how to avoid them. And that's what I did. Again, I've played a couple hours of this and nothing, and then I go into this and I'm dual wielding. I'm not even using a shield. And I'm not here to tell you how to play the game, because I think it can be played any way you want to if you are dedicated enough to play it. But we're in June of 2014, June 25th to be exact, and because I bought it on Steam, I was able to see exactly how much I paid for it, which was $33.49. Not entirely sure how I got that deal, considering it only came out a few months before, and they usually don't discount their games. Regardless, June 25th of 2014. I beat the game on July 13th, 2014, so less than a month later. A couple of weeks playing it constantly, every day after work, all the weekend, everything I could, just slowly exploring and discovering this game and figuring things out and trying different stuff. And I I went, oh, I do like Dark Souls. I just like Dark Souls 2. And again, I still never went back to that one. But I start playing Dark Souls 2 a lot, and this is actually really cool. The box for this, I really like this. This is awesome. There also, just as a side note, and only to briefly go over it, this was technically made by a different team at FromSoft, the creators. There was kind of A team and B team from my understanding. And A team made Dark Souls 1, B team made Dark Souls 2, A team made Dark Souls 3, etc. And people have used this as an excuse. People have said, well, that's one of the reasons why this one is quote unquote easier. I still found it extremely difficult, but it was very good. It did not dissuade me from playing, which is what happened with this one. I did not want to continue. I wanted to play this and beat it, and I did. Very happy about that. That's all I'm going to say on it. This, too, is still my personal favorite of the trilogy. I have yet to play Demon Souls. We'll get to that later. But the point is, I played this one, and I could get all the way through it. Could not progress in anything else. They also did another version later on. By this point, I own an Xbox One, and Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin, which is kind of a collector's. It has all the DLC in it. I get this. I remember picking this up. I was now moved out and living in my dad's house again and playing this game. I remember that for a couple of different reasons. One, I had to drive outside of the tiny little town that he lives in to go to find a GameStop, and had to drive a good distance away because there's just no places that sells games. I bought it, I brought it back home, I'm playing it, and I have no internet. That's another thing I remember. So I don't have all the full stats of that, but I do remember it did record that I started playing it April 9th of 2015, and I beat it May 1st of 2015. So I got a little bit faster. But by this point, I've already played through it multiple times on the PC. This was actually the first one I bought for Xbox. I got this later on because it was a collector's edition. It came with a whole thing. I like Dark Souls 2 so much, and Scholar of the First Sin was even better. They changed some things about it. They added monsters in different places where they weren't before. It was not quite a new experience, but it was something that now I had experience playing it, and I really liked it. It actually was one of the first things that I did on this YouTube channel. I came up with an idea way long ago, December of 2016. I'm jumping ahead a little bit. Let's take a step back here and just finish up. I did attempt Dark Souls 1 one more time. I'm playing it with somebody else this time. It was because it went on Xbox Games with Gold, I believe was the service that is now dead, where they would give you a free Xbox 360 game or Xbox One game every month as long as you had a recurring subscription. And that went on there, and it was like, yeah, let's give this a shot and play through it. We tried, and we got much further this time, but still not even halfway through the game. And we still were plagued with the problems of the Xbox 360 version, which was connecting. Sometimes it would take 5 minutes to get a connection. And then once you connected with a player once, it would remember that for that day, for that game session, as long as you were playing. So I do remember I've now moved at this point when I've moved back into my significant other's parents' house for the second time, and I'm playing with her dad. He plays video games a lot. It was a great time to play through this stuff. Fantastic. Learning these things together. I know a little bit of Dark Souls. I know a decent amount of Dark Souls from 2, but I only remember bits and pieces from here, but I have a pretty good understanding of it. I learned you can't spam attacks. You have to take your time. You have to learn. The game has a certain learning curve to it, and by that point, I've kind of picked it up. So we're doing okay in this. And then we drop off. That's just lose interest. You move on to other things. We moved out of that place, like the whole thing. But now, we're getting to here. We can come back to Dark Souls 2. I like it so much. I really enjoy it. And it's around this time that I have a camera and I think I'll make a video on my own. And I start a series that has long since been hidden, but still exists in December. Nope, that's my next note. I start a series that I don't have a date for in my notes, but it's, again, we go back to the debate that I'm not putting anything into of Dark Souls 2 being easier. And because the internet is kind of a toxic place, it's for casuals. There was a lot of, you're a casual if you play this game. I hate that. I hated it entirely. I still don't like it, but it did give me the idea to create casual gaming. It was an idea that I put forth a video. I'll link it in the description if you really want to go watch it. It was many years ago at this point, and my first attempt at making some kind of content on my own. I've talked about in the past, I'd been making videos here or there for different reasons, but this was one where I took gameplay from Dark Souls 2, did a voiceover. I tried to do a very deep voiceover, and then played classical music over it as I read through like facts of the game and showed some gameplay.
Hello and welcome to an evening of casual gaming. I am your host, a casual gamer. The developer, whose name is unpronounceable by my casual tongue, has said the following statement. The game is set in a different part of the same planet. To put it another way, if the first game was set in the North Pole, this one would be in the South Pole. I often use the South Pole as a reference to my ex-wife, a dark and cold place where the winter temperatures average -72 degrees Fahrenheit. In my own words, she is a frigid bitch.
And then it took a twist at the end, and it took a twist at the end where the music got all faster, and then it shows a series of me dying over and over and over. It was a silly thing at the time, but I made a couple of those videos, and it was because I just really enjoyed Dark Souls 2, and I wanted to do more stuff with it, and I was in the mood to create something. I do like that video. It's one of the things. It was the first thing that I created for this channel. It's a fond memory. The note I previously mentioned, December of 2016. The original friend that got me into Dark Souls, now we're playing Dark Souls. Now I like Dark Souls. Now we can play it together. And we did a thing on our other YouTube channel that was drunk gaming. We made a drinking game out of playing Dark Souls. It was rules like every time you died, you had to take a drink. Every time you did, every time something happened, usually negative towards the progression of the game, you had to drink. But then you could also force the other one to drink by like getting backstabs or parries or things like that. I'm pretty sure if I remember correctly, we started with if you could get a parry, the other person had to finish their drink. I can't parry at all, so to me, this seemed completely fair. My friend, again, has like 900 or 1,000 hours in Dark Souls. He could parry it instantly and very easily did. And then I had to finish my drink and I went, okay, we have to change this rule. We got very, very drunk and played Dark Souls. It was a great time. That's also linked in the description if you really want to go watch that. It's very old, but it was fun. This was also most likely where this came about. He didn't have an Xbox. I had a PlayStation 3. We talked about that previously, about why I bought a PlayStation 3, and we did play some games together. I do remember playing a good bit of like Terraria, Destiny, I think I talked about, but I'm pretty sure we did pick these up. Whether or not we played them, I honestly don't remember. I don't think we did, but I own 2 copies of Dark Souls 2 for PlayStation 3. Cool. I honestly don't know if they've ever been played. I do have 2 discs. That's good. Oh, actually, there's a receipt in here. I'm glad I saved this. There's an email address. Let's not show that on camera. This would be, if we look through, a March of 2016. March of 2016. Okay, so in between. Okay, we're out of order here. I did not realize I hadn't opened these up before, but that's cool. Neat. Anyway, moving on. April 24th, 2016. Dark Souls 3. I definitely bought the collector's edition again, whatever they called this one. I actually kept all of them. This is the last physical item I can show you because the rest of them were kind of over there. But here's a clip of just some... I have a shelf that's in the background for when I'm in work meetings or when I'm recording stuff at my editing computer. And I have a shelf dedicated to Dark Souls. I like Dark Souls now. It's pretty good. I did not beat Dark Souls 3. I put a good amount of hours into it. I don't know how many, but I did put a good amount. We actually might be able to find that out here in a minute. I played through it. I didn't play through it. I played a good bit of it and really liked it. I liked some of the things that they did. They updated some stuff. Unfortunately, one of my favorite things to do, the dual wielding from Dark Souls 2, where you could just do it with any weapons, was not a thing anymore. Now it was specific weapons that were dual blades within themselves. So one single item that was two blades, and that's how you dual wielded. But I could not play through this game with two swords. I needed a shield in order to beat this game. That was how I played through it. And that it does make it technically a little easier to use a shield because you can survive a hit, as opposed to how I played all the way through 2, which was I want a katana, or I want two katanas technically. When I finally got a second one, I used two katanas and I just dodged every time, which in fact made it harder, but I did learn how to dodge. So I guess I recommend that if you've never played a Dark Souls game, maybe go into it like that. But honestly, just use a shield. But now we come to a pretty important part along the journey, and we're done with the physical items, and we're gonna move into the digital. Let me turn on my Xbox. The next part of our journey begins in April of 2020. Pandemic is in full swing, and I've been furloughed from work, which means I get to stay home. I still get some money, basically unemployment from the government, but then there's a stimulus bonus that I get every week, and I actually wind up making more money than I was making when I was working. Cool. It kind of launched all of what you're seeing now because I was able to buy my first real video camera and go out to do wildlife. But during those months that I was no longer working, a friend and coworker at this point, a different friend, and then a previous one, we were kind of a whole group. There are 3 of us, and we say, let's 100% all the Dark Souls games. We've got the time. We're not doing anything else. It's dangerous to go outside. Let's play through all the Dark Souls games. And so we started. I didn't own, and even though I was making more money, I didn't buy Dark Souls Remastered, the first one, which I now do have. But at the time it was, well, we've already got it. Let's just play it on the Xbox 360 version like we did before. It's backwards compatible. And then we played it for probably 20 minutes, remembered all the problems we had connecting, couldn't get connected, and gave up on it and said, let's just jump to 2. When Remastered goes on sale, I'm the only one who doesn't own it. I'll buy it and then we can play it, but we'll go through 2. Now let's go into Dark Souls 2, since I have the disc in. I actually don't own this digitally. I only have it with the disc. That's some familiar sounds to me right there. We'll go ahead and get signed in here. And we'll go through. I actually, since I mentioned it, I should be able to see, thanks to Xbox Cloud Saves, I should be able to see all of my save games. And I can go back a little bit in the story here to tell you about just how much I liked. Yeah, we can continue. Let's see. First character I ever made, I played for 5 hours. Then I discovered the Castus, which is a fist weapons, and I made a joke about that. This is the one I played the most on. That, if you're curious about the name there, you could go back to a couple videos ago, weeks, months ago at this point, however far ahead this is in the recording schedule. There's another Capitalism Ho video that's about the King Killer Chronicles. This is the main character from it. But anyway, I put 102 hours into that character, got to level 225. That was the one that I was in my dad's basement when I was living there playing this game offline mostly. And the reason I got through so much of it was I was trying to collect all the weapons and armors. And if you see, the one that he's wearing has like a skull mask with these big dreadlocks almost coming out of it. Is it like Predator? I always wondered if it was like Predator. That's a really difficult armor set to get. It only spawns from, if I remember correctly, it's a very, very low chance, and you're like up on top of a bell tower. This is 7 years ago, 6 or 7 years ago, I'm trying to remember from. I didn't make a note about that because I kind of forgot. And then I played around with hexes, just random to do. Anyway, the point was I got to this character here, 100, because we were going to 100% the game. And you know what? Oh, we did. 1,000 out of 1,000. I'm blocking it. 1,000 out of 1,000. 38 achievements achieved. The Dark Soul achievement unlocked on April 14th, 2020. That is quicker than I expected. I thought we started at the beginning of April. I actually am not sure. I bet it doesn't go back. Yeah, 2015. And then it jumps to 2018 when I'm playing around. And then April 3rd. I haven't touched this character or anything. I actually don't know where we left off. We played through it. We used a guide. We did. Rather than trying to figure it out ourselves, it took 100 hours. This was a new character. We all created new characters to play together. And it took 100 hours to beat this game 100%. I'm in Drang Lake Castle. Okay. Can you see what... So I've got two... I'm covering it again. Okay, yes. I've got 2 katanas. Wow, I'm really loaded up here. I kind of forgot about that. I am fully loaded up with 2 katanas. Ready to go. Yeah, that's what I really liked about this this game. Oh, it feels fluid. It's nice. Oh, this is good. Okay, so that's the washing pole. And then another katana. I couldn't actually read it because I was covering it. But anyway, this is how I play through the game. This is my style. 2 katanas. Absolutely. I'd change it up for the next game. And that's what we did. We played all the way through 2, and we moved on to 3. Now I need to put the disc in order to show you 3. I was having some trouble with the disc yesterday. I haven't put a disc in since playing Dark Souls 3 in 2020, and then probably years before that. It's all digital now. I forgot that I don't actually own these games digital. I only own them with a CD, a disc, which has positives and negatives. Honestly, everything going digital means that they can remove it and take it away from you. I don't like that, but anyway, that's not here or there in this video. Dark Souls 3. Again, I played through it. I don't even think I got halfway. I played it a decent amount until I dropped off. It didn't grab me like 2 did, but we said we're going to 100% it, and we did. I mean, that's, you know, I guess spoiler. If I load game, I made a bunch of different characters. Yep. Oh, I even named that one. Name of my channel. All right. 163 hours this time. Okay, I can't play it. Did not realize that. So Dark Souls 3. I didn't realize that. I'm on my other profile. So the content, the DLC was bought digitally, which means that it's only saved. It should be. Why is it not? Did it not download it? Did it only install off the disc? I bet it did. I don't know how long this is going to take. I did not plan for this, but I did want to show you the character and show you what weapons I was using. So we play through Dark Souls 3, and we get to areas I've never been to before. The DLC. We did, as far as I can remember, we 100%ed. We did everything possible in the game, and we tried to do everything. If I remember correctly, yes, we did everything in Dark Souls 2. Every boss. Even if it was optional, we're already there. We might as well try. So we did do that. 3 got a little bit different. And I haven't explained it fully here, but in order to play 100% through this game, the reason why it takes hundreds of hours, you have to play through it multiple times. You got New Game Plus, New Game Plus, it continues. And you have to do it in order to make different choices and get different items that you can only unlock on multiple playthroughs. So we did wind up playing through each game 2 or 3 times. The first playthrough of Dark Souls 3, we gave it a shot. Had never touched the DLC before. We're following a guide for everything except for the DLC. When we got to the DLC, we tried to do a little bit looser. Let's just explore it. There's not achievements in the DLC. If I remember correctly, they just added new content and did not add achievements, I think. And so it wasn't as we have to make sure we hit all these things or we could miss something and then we're doing all this for nothing because we'd have to start over. So we just kind of played around with it. I remember specifically there is a dragon boss in Dark Souls 3, the DLC, that we could not beat. The boss at the end was really difficult as well. There were a few things where we really got stuck and it was just trying and trying and trying. And Ooh, it's difficult. It's a difficult game. 1,000 out of 1,000, 43 out of 43. We unlocked all of the achievements. May 16th, 2020. Shortly after this, I wind up going back to work, so I can't, remote, but I can't play anymore. So we never actually got to 1, but we did. We went all the way through, acquire all the rings, the pyromancies, the gestures. We just worked our way through. Let me see where we started this one. It would have been directly after that one, actually. We may have taken a couple of days off. Actually, I bet we didn't, because it was pretty much an everyday thing. Wake up, a couple hours in the morning, hit you up by noon, play until bedtime. Every day for months. It was great. I really enjoyed it. It felt good to get back outside when I did, and that's, get to the camera stuff and go look for birds. But during this time, I'm assuming because I'd already unlocked all of these, the reason I didn't get anything until the 19th, even though the last one was, I think I said the 15th, was because I'd already unlocked them, right? So we're going through. I was really impressed that we were able to. I knew we would be able to do 2. I almost did 2 on my own. It was the only thing that I didn't do on 2 was going through the New Game Plus stuff and collecting all the things that I was missing. And the only reason I didn't do that, I played through the game 6, 7, 8 times. I don't know. And that one character that I put 200 something hours into, I was on New Game Plus 4, I want to say. I was just kind of playing it to play it. I just really enjoyed playing through. And to do that farming for the armor in Dark Souls 2, Scholar of the First Sin, I put on movies on a second screen. I think I watched 6 or 7 movies in order to farm through all that. It took a really long, it was multiple days to get all of those nonstop. But Dark Souls 3, we are here. Let's see. I'm missing my shield. I know I played through this one with a shield, but I'm sure I took it off when we got to the later ones. But I am using, this is one of my favorite swords, the Dark Lothric Greatsword. I had this one infused. No, I kept it uninfused so I could infuse it. My spells don't line up with what I'm remembering. But yeah, really like this big old greatsword. This was great. This was how I played through, I think, our New Game Plus 2 and Plus 3. Not the first one. First one, I had to unlock the sword later on, which is another thing that we'll talk about later. But played all the way through 3, right? Great time. The only things I know we did not do was the DLC for the other playthroughs besides our first playthrough, because there was no point to it. And it was only getting more difficult. I'm pretty sure we could not beat the tigers. I think there was a second time. Yeah, there was the first fight with some tigers, and then the second time around, it's almost been 4 years since we did this. I'm trying to recall memories. And then that dragon one. I don't remember if we ever beat the dragon. The dragon was so difficult. I don't remember its name either, but it was, it was tough. It was very tough. But look, here's the point. The journey so far has been, I hate Dark Souls. I never want to play this game. Oh, I like Dark Souls 2. Okay, I can play Dark Souls 2. All right, I like Dark Souls 1 in some aspects. Let's beat the game together. It is objectively easier to play through with other people there. There's just another target. The bosses get tougher the more people are in, and some games have the ability to bring in, 3 or more people. But there's that. I never beat Dark Souls 1. How can I leave off without completing the full trilogy? I can't. I even play all the way through Elden Ring. I could do an entire video on Elden Ring. Elden Ring may be one of my top tier games of all time. But anyway, Dark Souls 1 is still sitting there, uncompleted. It needs to be done. And then it goes on sale a couple of months ago. And so I get it. But I'm the only one playing right now. Nobody, I mentioned it to the group of the people. I think you could only play with 2. And I'm pretty sure I said, hey, I'm going to play 1, I think. Either way, I'm on my own. And I decide, well, this is my game. I'm going to play it. I'm going to play it every weekend. I'm just going to use a guide right from the get-go. I'm not trying to prove anything by 100%ing it and playing through it there. And the guide is helpful in certain ways, but I also realize that it's only helpful up to a certain point. Even if you can read about a boss fight before you go into it, Even if you know some of the mechanics and it warns you about certain things, you still have to do the thing. It's still really difficult. I breezed through like the first half of this game without any trouble whatsoever. I don't understand it. I have put collectively into Dark Souls games and then Elden Ring easily 600 plus hours. So that might have something to do with it. But up until that point, I still considered myself to be terrible at Dark Souls. I could get through it. It was passable at best. I 100% Dark Souls Remastered. 41 out of 41, 1,000 out of 1,000. I did that myself. 11/17/2023. As of recording this, it's not quite a month later, but I did it. I started this, let's go back, this 8/12/2023. It must have gone on sale in August, and so I start playing it. I play it every single weekend until November the 17th. I didn't make a whole lot of notes. I didn't need to. The first note that I said was I'm following a guide, and the biggest trouble I had was Ornstein and Smough, which is a boss with two characters at the same time. Usually you only get one boss battle. This is a dual boss battle, and that's why it's difficult, is because you can't just focus on the one and dodge one person. You have to do both of them. And it's also a very tough, like the guide itself says, this is like one of the toughest fights in the game. Do it this way. And by that it's fight this one first, kill this one first, because the second one gets more powerful, and it's important to do it in a certain order to make it easier for your next playthrough. I did do that. But I go all the way through it, and I play. I didn't think this was possible. I went into it going, I'll give it my best shot, but I expected to hit a wall where I reach out to my friends again and go, I'm up to the point where I have to have help to move forward, you guys. I want to beat this game. I want to have 100% on my character, on my completion list, looking at these games, which is, remember I mentioned before, the first time I ever played Dark Souls was on Games for Windows Live. So when I look at on trueachievements.com, when I look at my gameplay of Dark Souls games, that one only has a couple of achievements and it's locked there forever. I can't remove it, so I don't have to see that I can never complete it. It's just there. And it actually was the turning point where I realized, okay, well, since I can never, Games for Windows Live is gone. I can't play that game anymore. I can't get achievements in it. It's just there on the list and I can never do anything about it. That's when I decided to just play through 1 through 3. I'd thought about, I'll play through everything, which means going all the way back to the Xbox 360 version that I was just showing on camera a minute ago and 100%ing this, so that every version of Dark Souls I have 100% in my game list, my history. But since Game for Windows Live went down, it was no longer relevant. But I did 100% it on my own. Towards the end of the first playthrough, I switched up my weapon. I was using, what was I using? I was using a katana. Of course I was using a katana. I always use the katana. I'm a fan of katanas. I really like that style of blade. Yeah. The Uchigatana plus 15. I don't think I had it 15 on my first playthrough, but going through that, I switched it up. I went, okay, I need something different. I need to keep this kind of fresh for me, and I want to do something slightly different. And remember what I did going from katanas in 2 to by the end of 3, I was using a big old greatsword type thing. So I'm using a greatsword here too. The King's Greatsword, or the Lord's, is that greatsword? It's been a month now. Great Lord Greatsword, there we go. So I'm using that. I'm not enchanting it like I did in the previous games or anything. I'm just playing through it, but you can't do that right away. You have to do that with the boss soul you get from the final boss, and it immediately puts you in a new game plus. So then you have to get back to a certain area a good number of hours into the game in order to make the weapon. So I did use the katana for a decent amount, maybe 1.5 of the 3 playthroughs I had to get through to do this. But anyway, while still going through the bonus that I did, I also didn't expect to do this, but I went, well, let me give the DLC a try, and I'll do the same kind of style. The DLC doesn't have any achievements for Dark Souls 1. Let me just go into it blind. I beat every boss. It was not easy. Oh, it was not easy. The guy, the soldier, what's his name, Artorias? Greatsword of Artorias, there it is, yes. I had a lot of trouble with Artorias. That was, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, that's a really quick, really fast, really hard-hitting boss. Oof. But I did it. I did beat it. It took me a while. I beat my head against the wall for a good while, but I did beat him. And that's what I did for a couple months, was just playing this game every weekend for a couple hours, put on a podcast, move your way through the game. I completed the whole Dark Souls. I did have a note with Artorias in it. It was the next paragraph. I completed all of the DLC for Dark Souls 1. And now I'm on a roll. Now I feel like I can do it. I completed the first, if I got through the first playthrough on my own, I can definitely do it again on New Game Plus. It gets slightly harder, but I know the game now, and I've got beefed up weapons and stuff. New Game Plus weren't that bad. 100% the game on 11/17/2023. I have no choice. I have to consider that I am okay at Dark Souls now. I 100% one of the games on my own. Reading a guide so I didn't waste time trying to figure things out or missing achievements, but I still, my hands were the ones pressing the buttons. I beat the bosses. And I also gave every boss a fair attempt without knowing anything. I wanted to go into each one of them blind that I'd never gone into before. So I did at least attempt. And if there was a mechanic that I wasn't figuring out, I'd go to the guide and go, okay, what do you suggest here? Okay. But I still had to do it. One thing I missed out on, the one thing from my first playthrough, there's a boss, Priscilla, who goes invisible after the first hit. You can just walk up and get one free hit on this boss, and then she goes invisible for the rest of the fight. Well, you have to cut off her tail in order to get a weapon. That was a big mechanic in the first one, cutting off the tails of certain bosses in order to get their weapon, and one of the achievements had to do with getting the weapons. Actually, let's go back to the achievement list. Yeah, acquire all rare weapons. That was one of them, and that's one of the last ones I did. The last one I did was getting all the rare weapons. It wasn't because of that particular tail cut off, but that was one of the ones I had to do on my second playthrough, and I was really concerned that if I missed it again, I'd have to do it on the third. You get one opportunity, one shot, one chance. Anyway, and I missed the first one, and I missed it the second time. But I died, which means I can go back in, which means the fight has already started. One thing I did read online, because I was full into making spreadsheets of what I was missing, reading everything I could. I did not want to miss out again, especially on this one. Using that Great Lord's sword that I was just showing you and doing a strong attack would actually stun her out of invisibility, and then you can see the tail and focus on it. That was how I did that the second time, but I did it. It was fun at times. I'm not going to say the whole thing was fun, but I did play all the way through Dark Souls 1 on my own. I didn't think that was possible. I'm very surprised that I did it. I'm really glad I did it, because now I have 1, 2, and 3 all 100%. And the next games I will play when I get in the mood again. I gotta get in a mood where I'm okay with the punishment of a game like this, because it is brutal. I'll play through Demon Souls, Sekiro, and Bloodborne. I've touched 2 of those. I've never touched Demon Souls, but they've got it for PS5 now. They remastered it as well. I'm gonna need to play through that one. And a spoiler for a future video, Elden Ring I 100% on my own. That's kind of why I went into this. I managed to do that. I played through it with those 2 friends that I was just talking about. We did, I don't know, the first 60 hours or so before people just kind of dropped off and stopped playing it entirely. And I went, no, this game is amazing. I'm going to keep going. But that's a future video, because it's one of my favorite games of all time. Here we go. I did it. I didn't think I was going to, but I did it. And that is Dark Souls. Dark Souls 1, 2, and 3, and my history with them. What a game. What a series. Look, I don't know what else I can say about it. I didn't like it. I liked it. I love it. I was bad at it. I'm okay at it now. That's as good as I'll ever say. I will never be better than just okay at the game. I can pass my way through it, and apparently I can play through the games on my own, which I did not think was something that was going to happen. I shocked myself. I set out with a goal saying I'll 100% it, but I hope I can do it on my own, only because of Elden Ring. That gave me the attempt. That gave me the reason to even attempt it, and I did. And I beat it. And I didn't expect that. I started getting an inkling that I might be able to. As soon as I finished, when I beat the boss on the first playthrough, I went, this is doable. I can do it. And it was smooth sailing from that point, honestly. Beating the bosses, yeah, it was a little difficult here and there, especially, again, Ornstein and Smough on the second playthrough, getting through that stuff, but it was doable, and I did it, and I'm proud of myself. It's a difficult game. All 3 of them are, within their own rights, difficult games. I'm ready for Elden Ring DLC. I'm recording this at the beginning of December 2023, and I am itching. I will drop every other game I'm currently playing to get Elden Ring DLC. I know I'm talking too much about Elden Ring. I can't stop. It's so good. But it takes everything from these that I like and makes it even better. We'll talk about it in the future. I'm sure I could continue talking about this even more, but to sum it up, Dark Souls is something that I like.